All right, y'all. Coach Cam from the HTL crew back again. We've got one more of these to do. This is the finale of the ACC preview episodes. Four teams left to go through. I do not have a plan for what I want to do next week. I was making sure I was getting this done first. Chances are I go something like NFL oriented. But if you guys have some ideas or some things that you want to hear me talk about, leave it in the comments, and I'll probably do it. Honestly, I'm pretty open to anything at this point. Like, there's so much content we could do. It's football season, so like the world is our literal oyster right now. Four teams left, and then this will be it. So we've got Syracuse, we've got Virginia, we've got Virginia Tech, and we've got Wake Forest. I understand it's not exactly the most exciting four teams that we could go over, but I really do feel the need to go over them because there is actually some surprises here, and there's actually some good value to be found if you're looking in the right spots. So without further ado, we're going to try and get through this as efficiently as possible. We are going to start with Syracuse football. This Syracuse was like one of our surprise teams, I guess, last year. I liked them going in. I did not think they would be as good as they ended up being. I think, first year head coach, you're not sure what you're going to get there, but Kyle McCord uh, really, I don't know if he surprised me. I liked him before, but he surprised me with how good he was in this offense. It was fun to watch. It was a lot of fun to watch. Um, Unfortunately, he is gone this year. So Fran Brown in his second year as head coach has got to have a new quarterback. It looks like the options are going to be Steve Angeli, who is Notre Dame's backup last year and actually looked pretty good in his limited appearances. They are also bringing in transfer Ricky Collins from LSU, who is like he's kind of been like touted for a little while. Like he's got some pretty good talent. Virtually has no experience in the league, so I think there would be a little bit of a learning curve either way. I think Angeli gets like a little bit of a softer landing because it's ACC football. I think he probably ends up with the starting job, in which case I think he does fine. I like if the season falls apart, I don't think it'll be because Steve Angeli didn't come to play. I think there's a lot of other areas where this team is lacking. I don't think quarterback is going to be one of them. I think they've got bigger issues to look out for. Um, we'll go over to running back. This is probably one of the areas where I'm a little, I don't know if I'm like, oh no, this is going to be terrible. But they had LaQuint Allen last year, another position group with a lot of turnover. So LaQuint was their guy. And LaQuint was their guy by like a long shot. Like this dude probably had 80% of the carries that they had last year. It's going to be more of like a split backfield this year with Yassine Willis and Will Nixon, who's a transfer from Washington. There's decent experience there, and like I don't think they're going to be terrible. Um, it's just you haven't seen a lot, so you're kind of leaving. I'm reserving judgment for later down the road. I look at the names and I'm not like, oh my god, they're so good. So I'm kind of just like waiting. I'm in wait and see mode a little bit, but I would put them on the lower end of the running back rooms in the ACC. So wide receiver is the biggest area for me where I see a ton of fall off right here. Aronde Gadsden, Trevor Pena, Jackson Meeks, all three of them are the top. Those are the top three receivers. All three are gone. There's no Kyle McCord. So it is complete turnover in the wide receiver room. The big addition is Jonte Cook. He's from Texas. I think he's great. So I think that's a good addition. But when you lose three of your top guys and you only bring one in, it doesn't address the need enough. So I definitely see them taking a step back, especially with Kyle McCord not at the helm. That offense needs someone who's accurate and someone who's experienced. And Angeli is not it. And with like kind of a fledgling receiver core, I don't see them scoring nearly as many points as they did last year. Moved to offensive line, which is another area where I see a ton of drop off. The main thing they had going for them last year was like continuity. They were healthy for the large majority of the season. The center, left guard, and right tackle are all gone. And another guard, Mark Petrie, was each injured in the spring, and he's out for the year. I can't remember what he had, but it's a season ender. And that happened in the springtime, so he'll be ready for next year. They got 5 transfers, only 37 career starts amongst this group, and with this offensive style they implemented last year that's predicated around the passing game and a guy that's got to get the ball out, Steve Angeli and a offensive line with 37 career starts amongst the group does not bode well in my mind. I think it's going to be a tough time, especially if they're not able to establish the run. And I think the running back room is worse than it was last year. So offensively, I just see a big step back for these guys. Defensively, we'll go defensive line. I think last year the defensive line was the biggest part of why they would lose some games. I think it was the weakest part of their defense. I mean, it was like 150 yards on the ground per game, 5 yards per carry that they gave up. And the defensive line was a big part of it. The leading tackler was like the safety, which if that happens, it's like never good. Um, they lost Fadil Diggs and Murad Watson. So that was like an edge guy and a defensive tackle. They added 3 experienced transfers and returned 7 defensive linemen that started at some, because they had kind of a revolving door trying to figure out like the group that fit. So 7 of them come back and they bring in 2 transfers to address the 2 that they lost. So technically, they are at least the same. It looks like they're bigger. It looks like they're definitely more experienced because a lot of those linemen got some good time last year. So they improved, but they were awful last year. So I would say it makes them average instead of well below average. Linebackers, I like this group for the most part last year. Marlowe Wax has been their guy for the last couple of years. He's gone. He was hurt a lot last year, but like he was kind of like their glue guy. He's gone. So is Justin Barron, who I actually thought was pretty solid. They bring back their number 4 and number 5 tacklers, add Gary Bryant from South Dakota State and James Hurd from West Virginia. So they addressed the losses again, did a decent job in the portal there. I think they remain solid since they were solid last year and Wax was hurt for most of the year. And they were okay without him. They're not going to light the world on fire, but they'll be fine. Go to the secondary, which ACC just terrible last year. ACC defenses tend to have thin secondaries. Syracuse was no exception. They ranked 105th in passing defense. Some of it's a combination of like the quarterbacks in the ACC tend to be pretty good. So like good quarterback play, decent receivers, and then thin secondaries. It's just a combination for it. It doesn't necessarily mean like if you put them against other people, they would be, highly ranked. But if there's like an issue with the ACC, it's just the thinness in the secondary, and the good quarterback play is not a good combination. So yeah, last year they ranked like 105th. They're losing their safety and their top corner, Clarence Lewis, who I actually thought was like good. I thought he was pretty good. The only returning starter I think is Deuce Chestnut. So they're gonna suck on this side of the ball. The unit's too thin, just like last season. They didn't address it enough. They lost their top 2 guys, one of which I thought was actually a difference maker. Deuce is not. And if he is, he's the only guy. So that just leaves one side of the field unprotected. So I just don't. It was a weakness last year. I don't think they got better. So I see it as a weakness again. As for their schedule, so only 8 starters are returning from last year's team. That is massive. And it kind of like amplifies because they overperformed last year on what I thought was an easier schedule. They won 4 of their games by less than 1 score. The schedule this year is pretty daunting, and they are worse at most position groups compared to where they were last year. Opening at Tennessee in a neutral but like not neutral site since it's in Atlanta. That could be a disaster. They get Clemson, Georgia Tech, Miami, Notre Dame, and SMU all on the road. That is a gauntlet. Like, that's awful. That is the worst schedule that I have seen. Legitimately, they might only win 3 games. The over-under is at 5.5, probably because of how good they were last year. That absolutely will not happen. 4 wins is probably right. I can see a world where it all falls apart and they only get to 3. A lot of guys are higher on this group. I am probably the biggest detractor of Syracuse this year. I see 3 to 4 wins. Maybe I'm in the minority of that thought process, but from what I've seen and that schedule, it's not a bowl team. I can tell you that. and you'd have to win more than 5.5 for it to be a bowl team. So maybe they win 5 in like a best case scenario. They absolutely do not. They're absolutely not a bowl team this year. I will eat my words, obviously, if they are, as I will in any other circumstance. I'm fairly confident in this assessment, though. Moving on to Virginia. I've got to be careful with this team. And hold on, let me do my little presentation thing. I got to be careful with this team because I have this like predisposition of like not liking them. It's just one of the teams that I'm just not a fan of. They annoyed me so much last year with Calandria at quarterback. I think he was on methamphetamines. Just the way that he played was an absolute whirlwind, and it's so hard to gauge like what kind of week they were going to have, like what kind of team they were going to be week to week. And of course, they finish at like the regular season at like a perfect 6-6, where they're good some weeks and another week just like, oh, what am I watching? I picked them to lose most of the time, and I was wrong like half the time. I almost never picked them to win though, so I'll be honest. That's why I've got to be careful because like my predisposition is like they're not good. So Calandria was the QB1 last year. Tony Muskett took over. Like I don't know, four games left, 3 games left, something like that. The year was almost over. Once Calandria lost the job, Muskett took over. He wasn't much better, in my opinion. Both are gone this year, as I kind of expected to happen. They bring in Chandler Norris from North Texas, where he was very accustomed to throwing the ball in great quantities. Um, the system's obviously going to be a little bit different at Virginia, but in theory, from what I've seen with Chandler Norris, there should be more talent around him than at North Texas. And he was pretty good at North Texas, so he should take a step forward in his development, and I view this as an upgrade. Running back, they bring in one of the 2 top backs, Xavier Brown. Kobe Pace is the guy that they had. He was like the two-headed monster, the other one. I liked him a little bit better. I thought he was more consistent, but honestly, both were solid when they were healthy. But Kobe Pace is gone. Xavier Brown returns, which I think is a good thing for them. They add Jamari Taylor from NC Central, who was 1,000-yard rusher, um, as well as Harrison Whaley, who was like a 3,000-yard rusher at the college level, but is like lower end schools. I forgot what school he went to, but he's got a ton of experience, if nothing else. A lot of miles on the tires. Honestly, the room's pretty good. It's got great experience, if nothing else. It might not be record breaking, but in the ACC, you don't need a record breaking running back room. You just need some depth and a couple guys that can break away. You need a home run hitter or two, and I think they have that here. They at least have one. Um, they're not. I will tell you, it's not going to be the reason why they lose if they lose. Go to the wide receiver room. Last year, these guys like infuriated me because the offense would be non-existent for the entire game, and then either Malachi Fields or Chris Tyree would make some insane play to bring them back in the game. Both of these guys are gone, as well as the tight end Tyler Neville, who was the starter, but to me, he was probably like the 4th receiving option. He wasn't like a big difference maker, but he helped in blocking too, though. So that's a little bit of a loss. They add 3 transfers from James Madison, Kent State, and Purdue, all respectively, who all had some experience. They could be in worse shape if these guys transfer in and make an immediate impact. So it's like they're not coming from great schools, but it's starters. Like they have starting experience at the collegiate level, maybe at lower ends, like they're mid majors and not quite the Power Four, but it could be worse. I think because it's not like the wide receivers last year were good in moments, but I don't think they were difference makers consistently. So if these guys are just consistent, even if they're not like world beaters, it could be either they're flat or a step forward. All right, offensive line. Here we go. They brought in 8 transfers. All right, 4 of them have been full-time starters at another school. They lost Ty Furnish, Brian Stevens, Blake Steen, and Ugana Nanana. That's, that's 4 of the 5 starters. So even though they lost those guys, they brought in 8 transfers with 182 career starts between them. He's got 10 to 12 linemen that are brought in or have come back. There is depth. There is experience. Head coach Tony Elliott said this is the best O-line he has had in 4 years. There's been a few instances where a coach has been like adamant about an improvement in a certain area. They're normally right, y'all. Like if a coach says it before the season even starts, he's got something going there. And Elliott's a pretty good offensive line guy. He normally just doesn't have a lot of depth to work with. This is the most depth I have seen. And there's a ton of experience. So if he says it's his best O line that he's seen in 4 years, I believe him. So massive step up for these guys until proven wrong. Move to the defensive side. So offensively, almost everywhere they either stayed the same or upgraded. So we keep that in mind. Defensively, all right. And now for my narrative, I'm getting a little bit worried, which is like the Virginia hater. They lose Chico Bennett and Cam Butler, so two full-time starters. But they went crazy in the portal. 6 transfers on the D-line being brought in, including one from Alabama and another one from Ohio State. Alabama and Ohio State. Another 3 productive linemen who combined for 17 sacks last year at other teams got transferred in. They've got 4 defensive tackles who are over 300 pounds. They have legitimate depth. This is a solid unit. All right, so like looking at every position group so far, there's not a ton of weaknesses. Are these like top end talents? No, but they're strong everywhere. Very consistent everywhere. And at linebacker, they only lost one starter, Corey Thomas. They bring the other 3 in the rotation back. They weren't like world beaters, but the experience is good, and they've got camaraderie. They've got that continuity. So to me, that's a good thing. What I did notice is they brought in a couple of all-conference guys from other teams. Maddox Marcellus from Eastern Kentucky, Jason Prevard from Morgan State. Those are mid-majors, obviously, or FCS. They're FCS. But they're all conference FCS, which means they're at least going to be role players at the ACC level. Maybe not at the SEC level, but at the ACC level, they should be in the rotation and probably contributing on a decent level. So that's another group that is not bad. Last one, defensive back. So the secondary, last year they had a ton of injuries, and like a lot of ACC squads, that they just don't have a lot of depth in the secondary. 2 of them are back from injury. Jam Jackson, he is good. And Dre Walker. They also bring back Antonio Clary and add Devin Neal from Louisville, which is a crazy pull. Devin Neal's legitimate. And they got him from Louisville, so that's a good find right there. So even though they lost a couple guys, they should be healthier, and they'll be better in this area too compared to last year. Finally, we'll go to the schedule. To make matters worse for my narrative, these guys have the legitimate easiest schedule in the ACC. SMU is like a distant second. They miss Miami, Clemson, Georgia Tech, and Notre Dame, as well as anyone with any talent in their non-conference schedule. They are absolutely set up for success this year. The over-under is placed at 6.5, and I absolutely see them getting 6 wins and going bowling. That is a no-brainer. After that, they need to find one more win between NC State on the road, Florida State, Louisville, North Carolina, Duke, and at home versus Virginia Tech. They will at least find one win in all of those games and finish with 7 wins. I have them, no matter how much I hate to admit it, I have them at the over at 7 wins. They will be a better team this year with an easy schedule. Moving on to the third of 4 teams, we're going to Virginia Tech. Let's make our move over here. I've got this one prepped and ready to roll. Virginia Tech, my absolute, like, this is the one I missed. Like, this is the one I missed last year. Like, this was like my dark horse for like having like a really good year, potentially making some noise. Later in the, like, not just going bowling, obviously, but like actually making some noise in the playoff, like maybe an ACC championship run, maybe not winning it, but like being a contender. They were not that at all. So they probably made my list as most disappointing teams last year. They're probably number 1 on that list for me. We'll start at quarterback. Kyron Drones is back. He played hurt or was out for a lot of the season last year, so I'm sure a lot of people are calling for a rebound type of season for him. I'm less sold, but Kyron has performed well before, and if he doesn't, Pop Watson showed some promise at 3rd string last year. I think if he gets some run, he might actually be a pretty good quarterback. But the jury is, a lot of people are saying that Kyron's going to have a bounce back year. I want to believe that because when he's healthy, he's good. And it's tough because like last year it was like leg injuries. It was like a foot thing. It was an ankle thing. So like his whole lower body didn't feel good, and he's a dual threat guy. So you want to kind of like reserve some judgment and and assume like okay he'll be back and will at least be marginally better. Um, I don't know if he makes the difference for. I don't know if it's like do they go when he goes? I don't know. I don't know if he's that guy. But if he is healthier, they will be more fun to watch. I can definitely promise that. Running back. So my favorite player in college football outside of Haynes King is gone. This is Bashal Tutin at running back. He is my favorite running back in the league. Probably him and Claiborne from Wake Forest, who we'll get to later. He's gone. They did bring in Terrion Stewart, who was first team All MAC from Bowling Green, and Braden Bennett from Coastal Carolina, who was their number one as well. Um, And then I think they also got a D2 guy who was like 1,000-yard runner last year. So they lost Tootin, but I don't know if they take a step back because the depth is better than it was last year. Um, I like Terrion and I like Braden. I don't know about this D2 guy, but if he's 1,000-yard runner, like he's seen success before. I think the depth is good. I think they'll be pretty solid at running back. So wide receiver, last year I thought this was the least impressive group on the field last year for this team. Not good separators, don't catch well. All four of them are gone. So the wide receiver room is completely new. They bring in Cam Seldon from Tennessee, who projects well, and Donovan Green from Wake, who had some pretty good moments last year on a bad team. In my opinion, they can't be worse than last year, so I'm calling for them to at least be as bad, but more likely a little bit better than last year. So it doesn't blow me away, but if you got a healthy Kyron and, if Green takes a step forward, Selden, I think he projects well, and I like Selden to me is like a wide receiver one in waiting. But if Green projects, or if Green kind of like takes that next step, they've got two guys I think that can make some noise for him, which would be good. Offensive line, most of the starters from last year are gone. They bring in a new offensive line coach, which could help boost things, but they lost a lot of experience. I see a lot of growing pains here, particularly in the first few weeks before they build some camaraderie. It's just a new group. They did okay in the portal, so it's not like they did bad in the portal. But it's a new O line coach and it's new guys. Like you don't know what that's going to look like. So I would project some like growing pains, and then maybe halfway through the year you start to see them kind of like solidify. If the group is good, I really couldn't tell you enough about him to give you a good. I know the O line coach is good. He's just got some new stuff to deal with, so we'll see how he does. All right, so defensive side of the ball. Defensive line, All-American Antoine Powell Ryland is gone to the draft. That is going to hurt a lot. That is their guy. And if that's not enough, they also lose Aeneas Peebles, who's third team All ACC and also a draft pick, and 3 role players. So they added 5 transfers, including a couple all conference mid majors, but they didn't replace Powell Ryland because he really can't be replaced unless you're grabbing someone from the SEC, and they didn't do that. They're going to have a hard time replacing him. So I think the good thing with Virginia Tech is they have an identity defensively, and they've had that for a few years now. So while they may not be quite as good, I generally trust them to compete on the line of scrimmage because it's kind of like their MO. It's like what they're known for. Just like tough, hard-nosed defense. That mentality is coming back, even if they're not quite as talented. I don't think it's that much of a step back, but it will be noticeable. Linebacker, kind of the theme with the defense for Virginia Tech is turnover. 2 starters are gone, Keonta Jenkins and Sam Brumfield, both the top 2 tacklers on the team. No, actually, those were 3 and 4. The top 2 tacklers on the team both returned, and they brought in 3 transfers to kind of solidify the depth. Again, it's Virginia Tech defense. They've got an identity. I like this group for the most part. Out of the defensive units, I think this is my favorite one. I don't know if they're upper echelon, but they're going to be above average for sure. Secondary, this group was actually really good last year, very not ACC like. Top 20 in PDR rankings for that particular position group. They lose Dorian Strong, who is absolutely shut down. That dude's nasty. And they also lost Mansour Delane, who I liked a lot as well. And they lose starting safeties Jalen Jones and Moses Phillips. So basically the whole starting secondary is gone. They addressed it by bringing in 6 transfers, 4 of whom were full-time starters on other teams. So like it's an experienced group, but experienced for other teams, not experienced for Georgia Tech. It's just going to be hard to match what the group from last year did because they were literally a top 20 secondary. So I see them taking a step back, but they brought in some experience. And as long as they gel, it's going to make them, especially for the ACC, it'll make them an above average secondary. Maybe not an elite secondary like they were last year, but good enough for the ACC for sure. All right, finally, we'll talk about the schedule. So, in our history, close losses are kind of an indicator of progression or regression, depending on how the previous year went. Last year, they lost 5 close games. I will say the injuries they had did not help. A lot of signs point to them being much better this year. The schedule is not my favorite, however. Opening with South Carolina is brutal, and then Vanderbilt right after them, who beat them last year. Like 2 SEC teams to open the season is not a lot of fun. But after that, it gets more winnable. NC State's winnable. Georgia Tech at Georgia Tech will be tough. And the other thing is like Georgia Tech lost that game last year because they were super unhealthy. If you get a healthy Georgia Tech team and they're at home looking for revenge, that's a tricky game as well. Good news is they get Louisville and Miami at home, so they don't have to travel for those. So if they can win one of those two, I see potential for an 8-win season. 7 to me seems realistic. I think this group is good. The projection went down to 6.5, I guess because kind of last year was kind of disappointing. I actually think they're better this year, especially if Kyron Drones is healthy and is playing like Kyron Drones. 7 wins to me seems realistic, so I've got them over. 8 is there's a potential for 8, but they've got to win either Louisville or Miami. Obviously, both are tough games, but if they can win one of those two, it's tough to play at Blacksburg. Like they've got a good home field advantage, so they might do it. 7 for sure, 8 maybe. Finally, the team everyone has been waiting to hear about. The Wake Forest Demon Deacons. Oh boy. See if I've got a. No, I didn't pull up right, so I'm not even going to worry about it. Just know I'm talking about Wake Forest, y'all. This won't take me long. Okay. This is a very Stanford type of vibe here. Wake's tough, dude. I wanted to like them because like I really enjoy their offense. Like I really enjoy like that mesh concept. It's a lot of fun and it can like trick some people, some defenses if they're not ready for it. If it's going well, it's a lot of fun. At the beginning of the year, it was nice. It was going well, but once you lose a couple guys on the O line, you face faster defenses, and if your O line doesn't like have that like factor where you can like match up with like the best defensive lines, it goes downhill really fast. So I didn't have a lot of confidence this year. I probably have the same amount of little confidence. At quarterback, QB1, QB2, Bachmeyer and Michael Kern are both gone after disappointing seasons, so it's not like that much of a loss. I wanted to like Hank. The game just got fast for him sometimes, especially if they were down and he was trying to make a play. Like he could make things worse. He could kind of Will Levis his way to a loss. Some somewhat good news. They got Robbie Ashford from South Carolina. He's probably the favorite to start this year. He will compete against Deshaun Purdy from Charlotte, who I did watch a couple games. And I wasn't overly impressed, but he's got some swagger to him. So that's probably the QB competition. I don't think they're much better. I don't think they're any worse, though. Ashford can do a good job, I think. He's got some experience, at least. Go to running back. Damon Claiborne, one of my favorites to watch last year. He is back. So is Tate Carney. They kind of take over the backfield together. They have a very Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier vibe going for them. Just like the Wake Forest version of that. So it's like not nearly as good, but like, explosive playmaker and then a guy that runs it down your throat. Like they have that. So it's a good like 1-2 combination. They complement each other very well. I actually think this is probably the best unit on their team. I think the running back room is kind of where it's good. The rest is maybe not, but it's good here. And Claiborne's got a chance to be all ACC legitimately. Wide receiver, massive amount of turnover. May not be a bad thing. I like Taylor Moore and Horatio Fields. They're both gone along with the 3 and 4 options. They bring in 9 transfers in what will be a completely remade group. They've got a ton of good depth, but I don't know about the top end talent. I don't see it, but I see a lot of different guys. And when you've got a lot of different guys that are kind of all trying to vie for the same thing, someone eventually steps up. So I have some high hopes for this group. They're probably average at best, but I think they can be better than last year. I liked the names last year, but they didn't perform well. I'm hoping someone kind of new comes out and establishes themselves. With 9 transfers, it should happen. Offensive line, another position group with a bunch of turnover. All 5 starters, literally, from last year are gone. Again, the group wasn't great, so it's not a huge loss when the group didn't do good and they're all gone. And with the mesh concept, it has to be great for the system to work. Coach Dickert, the new head coach for Clausen's gone. So Coach Dickert is the new head coach. He thinks he has found the right combination. They brought in 6 transfers, a lot with decent starting experience. He thinks, here you go, another coach that says this offensive line group is the best that Wake Forest has seen in years. That is a massively important thing for Wake. We will see. But the coach said it. Granted, he's the new coach, so he's probably going to say some good stuff. He wants to make a good impression. We were reserving judgment for a later date. We will see how it goes. Going to the defensive side of the ball, defensive line, like most of their position groups, they lost a ton here. There's a ton of turnover on this team, just more than almost any other. The exodus in the spring was crazy. 4 starters are gone, as well as some key depth pieces. They bring in 6 transfers because they did not have a choice but to bring in 6 transfers, but none of them jump off the page because it was kind of like late ads because of what happened in the portal. This is going to be one of the worst pass rushes in all of football. It probably will be the worst in the ACC. Linebacker, the key here is Devon Patterson, who is probably Wake's only legitimate NFL player outside of Damon Claiborne. He will lead the defense this year and linebacker core, which lost its number 2 tackler but returned almost everyone else. This should be the only strength of the defense. Devon Patterson, remember that name. He is the key. He's also a future NFL player, so keep an eye out for him. Defensive back in the ACC, you know where this is going. Another ACC team in the bottom 10 of the cornerback and safety room play from last year. Capone, Blue, Kadarius Kelly are gone along with Evan Slocum, none of whom did great. They bring back the top tackler, though, Nick Anderson, who is a safety. And again, I said this earlier. When your safety is the top tackler, it is almost never good. That means you're tackling people after 10, 15-yard games a lot of the time. And that's what we've got going on here. They added Karan Prunty from NC, North Carolina A&T, I think. They will still suck, but they will not be worse because they were 127th last year out of 134 teams. So they won't be worse than that, but they won't be much better. So expect more bad on top of bad. All right, last thing. The schedule. The bad news, Wake has 9 returners. The good news, the new coach did a great job in the portal, and they actually got... See, they got like a top 25 recruiting class from the portal, but they did it off of volume. So I don't know how much weight it holds. Like, okay, great. A lot of people went to the team, and that's good, but like the high-end talent didn't really enter. So I still have my doubts about it being a top 25, legitimate top 25. Not top 25 in terms of talent, I don't think. Top 25 in terms of numbers, for sure. So there's room to be surprised because when you bring in a lot of new players, there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of people fighting for starting jobs. You can build a good team that way. So there's some room for surprise at the end of the day. I don't think it's this year, but if they can keep, like this transfer class comes in and they can keep some of this continuity and establish some building blocks for next year, they may only be a year away from a good season. This year, though, I see a rough schedule. After the opening non-conference slate, which is both pretty, those games are pretty easy. They should win both of those. But after that, I don't see them beating NC State, Georgia Tech, or Virginia Tech. The travel to Oregon State's going to be rough. I don't know if they win that game. Then they follow up with SMU. That's a bit of a gauntlet. And then they've got to win 3 of the final 5 of Florida State, Virginia, North Carolina, Delaware, and Duke at Duke. I think they win one of those, Delaware. So at most, I see 4 wins. More likely 3. Their over-unders at 4.5. I don't think they win 5 games. I see 3, but there's room for them to win 4 if they start to kind of pull it together towards the end of the year. They can maybe surprise 2 of those teams at the end of the schedule. All right, that is it, y'all. I'm gonna breeze out of here. Those are the last 4 teams. All 17 teams are covered, so be excited about that. Next week, let me know what you guys want to do next week. I'm leaning towards something with football. We will see if it happens. Um, Otherwise, I think that is all I have for this episode. Again, leave a comment, leave a like. Let me know what else you want to see. Football season is right around the corner. I am extremely